creature moves between shadow and sand, restless as the desert wind, yet silent as a bird gliding beneath a moonless sky. What being is spoken of in visions, whispered about in deserts, and feared in the lonely places where light has no authority. Meet Lilith, the night creature. In the ancient prophecies, she appears where ruins stand emptied and wilderness reclaims the bones of cities. A haunting figure, a watcher of abandoned places where desert beasts gather and the boundary between the living and the lost grows thin. Some describe her as a night demon, her form shifting like heat on the horizon, a silhouette with long, wind-torn hair and eyes that reflect no fire. Others speak of a great nocturnal bird, wings spread wide across the dark, circling over wasteland stones with a cry that chills the blood. In even older stories, she is the first wanderer, a creature born of rebellion and dusk, forever tied to the mysteries of the night. A harbinger of isolation, a presence that slips through forgotten thresholds and settles where no human voice remains. Lilith is not a monster of flesh alone, nor purely spirit. She is the embodiment of the wild places, where loneliness takes shape and the desert seems to breathe. Whether demon or bird, woman or specter, she is the one who dwells where darkness gathers. A figure whose shadow stretches across centuries, warning travelers that some corners of the night were never meant to be walked by men.
Before Eden, long before gardens bloomed or gates were forged, there was clay and breath and the first stirring of names. According to ancient Hebrew tradition, Lilith was Adam's first companion, formed not from his rib, but from the same primordial earth that shaped him. Equal in origin, equal in form, two figures molded by the same divine hands, but equality, it seemed, was not the design intended to endure. The texts speak of discord in that earliest union. Adam expected dominion. Lilith demanded recognition. When he sought to place himself above her, she refused to submit. The accounts vary, but the heart of the story remains constant. Lilith would not be ruled. She spoke the ineffable name, the hidden word of power, and with it, she rose into the air and fled. Away from the garden, away from Adam, away from the roles assigned before questions could even be asked. She did not ask for permission. She did not plead her case. She simply left. Messengers were sent to retrieve her. 3 angels descended to the shores of the Red Sea, where Lilith had taken refuge among the wild and untamed places. They offered her return, promised reconciliation, warned of consequences. But Lilith refused. She chose the wilderness over paradise, freedom over belonging, the vast and lonely expanse over the bounded safety of the garden walls. And for this defiance, she was transformed, cursed by some accounts, liberated by others. She became something neither fully human nor entirely divine, a creature of the threshold, belonging to no world completely. While Adam received a new companion, one fashioned from his own body to ensure compliance, Lilith vanished into the spaces between, into night, into wind, into the howling emptiness beyond Eden's borders. She became the first exile, the first to choose the unknown over submission, and the night claimed her as its own. The Mesopotamian Shadow. But Lilith's story did not begin in Eden. Her roots reached deeper into the clay tablets and temple walls of ancient Mesopotamia, where she walked under different names, but wore the same dark crown. In Sumerian texts, she appears as Lilitu, a class of wind spirits, restless and untethered, associated with storms and desolation. These were beings of the wilderness, creatures that haunted the edges of civilization where order gave way to chaos. The Babylonians knew her too. In their incantations and protective spells, she's named among the demons of the night, beings that slip through cracks in doorways, that threaten children in their cradles, that bring fever and nightmares to the unwary. One ancient Sumerian poem tells of a young goddess, Inanna, who plants a hulupu tree in her sacred garden. But the tree becomes infested. A serpent coils at its roots, a great bird nests in its branches, and at its trunk dwells Lilith, the dark maid who makes her home in the wild places. The hero Gilgamesh drives them out. The serpent is slain, the bird flees, and Lilith, she tears down her house and escapes into the wilderness, back to the desolate places that have always been her domain. Even then, she was the one who could not be tamed, the one who would not nest where others decreed, the one whose presence marked the boundary between the cultivated and the wild. In demon bowls and amulets scattered across the ancient Near East, her name appears in warnings and protective charms. New mothers wore talismans inscribed with prayers against her. Doorways were marked with symbols to keep her at bay, for she was believed to hunt in the night, to prey upon the vulnerable, to steal away that which was most precious. New life, innocent breath, the boundary between sleep and waking. Whether these were the actions of a vengeful demon or the metaphorical embodiment of the dangers that lurked in darkness, illness, infant mortality, the terrors that visit in the night, Lilith became the name whispered when something precious was lost without explanation. She was the answer to the unanswerable, the face given to faceless dread. The Screech Owl of Isaiah. Centuries pass, empires rise and crumble, and still Lilith endures in the margins of sacred text. In the book of Isaiah, the prophet envisions the fall of Edom, a once great kingdom reduced to ruin. He describes a wasteland where no human will dwell, where the land itself becomes cursed and desolate. Wildcats shall meet with hyenas, goat demons shall call to each other, there too Lilith shall repose and find a place to rest. In the Hebrew text, the word is Lilith, and translators have struggled for millennia to capture its meaning. Some call her a screech owl, others a night bird or night creature, still others preserve her name, Lilith. But the image is clear. She is the one who dwells in ruins, the presence that settles where cities fall silent, a creature of the threshold between what was and what remains. She does not destroy, she inhabits the already destroyed. She does not bring desolation, she is drawn to it, like a moth to flame, like wind to canyon, like shadow to stone. In Jewish mystical tradition, this passage became proof of her continued existence beyond Eden. She was not merely a figure of the distant past, but an ongoing presence, a spirit that walked the earth, forever seeking the empty places, the forgotten corners, the ruins where human voices no longer echo. Medieval rabbis expanded upon her legend. In the Talmud and later writings, she appears as a dangerous night demon, a seductress of men, a strangler of infants. Protective rituals were developed to ward against her. Amulets bearing the names of the three angels who pursued her were hung in birthing rooms. She became the explanation for sudden death, for dreams too vivid to be natural, for the inexplicable losses that visited families in the dark. But beneath the fear, beneath the demonization, a different truth persisted. Lilith was the one who would not be contained, the one who existed outside the boundaries of the ordered world. The feminine force that refused domestication. She was danger, yes, but she was also freedom, and that made her the most threatening creature of all. The modern revival. For centuries, Lilith remained in the shadows of religious text and folklore, a cautionary figure whose name was invoked in prayers of protection and whispered warnings. But in the modern age, something shifted. Feminists and artists, poets and mystics began to reclaim her story, not as a demon to be feared, but as a symbol to be celebrated. In their retellings, Lilith became the first woman to demand equality, the first to refuse subjugation, the archetype of feminine independence and resistance. She was recast as a hero of autonomy, a figure who chose exile over oppression, who walked away from paradise rather than compromise her dignity. In literature and art, she appears as a complex figure, simultaneously dangerous and wronged, monstrous and misunderstood. She represents the aspects of femininity that patriarchal systems have long sought to suppress: rage, sexuality, independence, the refusal to submit. Contemporary retellings ask, what if Lilith was not cursed but liberated? What if her transformation was not punishment but evolution? What if the wilderness she chose was not exile but home? These questions breathe new life into an ancient myth, transforming a figure of fear into an icon of empowerment. Yet the old stories persist alongside the new. In magical traditions, she remains a powerful and dangerous force. In popular culture, she appears as vampire queen, demon mother, dark goddess, a being of immense power who operates by her own rules. Lilith endures because she represents something fundamental and unresolved: the tension between freedom and belonging, autonomy and connection, the wild and the civilized. She is the question that every generation must answer for itself. What price are we willing to pay for independence? And what do we lose when we choose safety over sovereignty? The eternal night. Lilith remains what she has always been, a figure of the threshold. She exists in the spaces between light and dark, human and demon, history and myth. She cannot be fully grasped or completely understood, for she is the embodiment of what lies beyond understanding. The wild, the untamed, the refused. In ruined cities and empty deserts, in the quiet moments before dawn when night whispers its secrets, she endures, not as a creature of flesh or spirit alone, but as an idea that refuses to die. She is the voice that says no when compliance is demanded. The shadow that reminds us that not all darkness is evil and not all light is kind. The figure that walks away when the cost of staying is too high. Whether demon or liberator, monster or martyr, Lilith's story speaks to something essential in the human experience: the desire for freedom, the cost of defiance, and the haunting beauty of choosing the unknown over the unbearable. In every generation, she is rediscovered. In every age, she is reborn. For as long as there are ruins to inhabit, deserts to wander, and nights too dark to name, Lilith will be there. The eternal wanderer, the night creature, the one who chose exile over submission. And her shadow will stretch across the centuries still to come, a reminder that some spirits cannot be bound, some voices cannot be silenced, and some corners of the night were meant to remain wild, untamed, and forever free.